Hi, I'm Daniel. I'd like to share some thoughts about how causality can help us build robust machine learning models for medical imaging. There's been growing awareness among healthcare regulators and the scientific community of the need for responsible reporting in machine learning for healthcare. And there's been increasing efforts to outline best practices for the safe development and monitoring of AI-enabled technologies. And this has been accompanied by a surge in discussion in the medical community about the opportunities, but also crucially the risks of deploying these tools in clinical practice. Most of the apprehension is around their external validity, and that means how well these models generalize outside the controlled development environment. In particular, the concerns are about whether the training data is representative of the target population, whether we have access to enough machine learning ready annotated data, whether this data is actually reliable for training a model, and whether the task that we're trying to address is actually confounded by some process that we're not accounting for. Now, the key here is that the causal reasoning gives us a systematic way of understanding and communicating these challenges. Now, let me walk you through two clinical examples to help hopefully make this more concrete. The first example is about developing a brain tumor segmentation model for clinical use. Here we have data from a cohort of adult glioma patients, that's a type of brain cancer, and we've had a team of radiologists manually segment the lesion on MRI scans for planning delivery of radiotherapy. Here, we foresee differences in the prevalence of this type of cancer across age groups, and there might also be different types of MRI scanners in routine clinical use. And these kinds of differences are known to often degrade the performance of machine learning models in practice. Now, more generally, there can be differences in various external factors across environments. So not just the disease prevalence and image acquisition like here, but also relating to demographics and the annotation process itself. The second example I'd like to cover is on detecting skin cancer from dermoscopic images. These are close-up pictures of skin lesions, and we're trying to predict cancer diagnosis as determined by a biopsy. The tricky thing in this example is that not every patient gets a biopsy, only suspicious cases. And this means that benign-looking lesions will be underrepresented in this dataset. And this is an example of sample selection bias, and that's a data-dependent process that determines what's included in the dataset. And there are multiple possible mechanisms, like the care pathways in the hospital, like in this case, but also manual interventions in the data relating to data curation or quality control, for example. Now, putting it all together, we can actually formulate a detailed characterization of data mismatch. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. This is just to illustrate that causality provides a precise language to articulate assumptions about bias mechanisms in the data generating process. And this, in turn, helps us to identify mitigation strategies for training reliable models in high-risk environments like healthcare. So to make this more directly practical for the community, we formulated this little checklist here. This starts with going beyond just the typical machine learning paradigm of input and output and really trying to understand the context of the problem, so that we're then able to answer these questions about the data generating process. And then we will be in a position to draw a diagram representing these assumptions, which enables transparent communication, but also critique. And then we can scrutinize these assumptions and see how we can improve the models. Finally, we can walk through this graph to identify the various bias pathways that underlie this data generating process, and then establish corresponding strategies to mitigate them. So just to summarize, what I want you to remember is that understanding the causal story of the data is crucial for the safe development of healthcare AI. You can find more details in our paper. Thank you for listening.